Unshelling Medicine podcast. Healthcare in the language we understand.
Hello, everybody. Welcome again to another exciting episode. Today I have the privilege, and I'm so grateful for him being here. I have Jonathan Niziol, and he's an all-around cool guy, I hear. So
I might have suggested she say that. I might not have. I mean,
it's neither here nor there. So we'll
Right.
find out, right? So Jonathan, welcome. He's actually a mental health advocate. So we need a whole lot of him out here in this world. So welcome, Jonathan. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. So when we were talking about mental health advocate, mental health awareness, what led you to the point of having to speak up for other people? Was it a personal experience, an approximate experience, or just basically an observation on what is happening in the world around us?
That's a great question. So I would say I'm an advocate for a number of things. I'm a recovering alcoholic, recovering drug addict. I lost my mom very suddenly, so I talk about grief a lot. I had an eating disorder for about 8 years. I've been a model for 16 years, and then dealt with mental health all throughout that. So I'm a hands-on learner. I guess we could say I'm a real it's from life experience. And I've gotten to the point where I want to share and talk about it with, people like yourself who have wonderful programs. And I'm really thankful for you having me on. And yeah, just to talk about it and to say that this is the stuff that I've been through. For the longest time, I was very ashamed of what I'd been through. And I thought, I've made so many mistakes and I'm such an idiot and all that kind of stuff. But the more I talk about it and the more I realize that it's led me to become who I am, the more I realized that it's life experience. And I was doing my best with what I had at the time and learning along the way. And I'm still learning. We can never stop learning. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about it now, is because I feel like I'm in a good place where it's very manageable and it's a very prevalent issue throughout society. All those things that I just talked about, the addiction, they're very prevalent, and they don't choose by race, they don't choose by gender, they don't choose by tax bracket, they don't choose by, none of that. It's across the board, it's societal. So I think it's something that we need to talk about.
Absolutely. Let's unpack the shame aspect a little bit. We don't have enough time in the day and months and years to unpack it in full, but let's just unpack it just a tiny bit. What was the primary reason you felt ashamed to actually talk about it? I can name a number of things, but, for you as an individual, I'm sure there was something or a group of things that kind of like pushed you into like a dark place, a shell of sort, not to really express, your experiences, which is very useful for everybody, who may not have an avenue to express themselves. Could you talk about the shame bit just a little bit?
Absolutely. A big one was an eating disorder. I'm a guy. I'm a 210-pound guy. I can bench 300 and something pounds. I used to be a professional lacrosse player, but an eating disorder it's not a manly thing. It's considered like, kind of feminine or kind of like, whatever. That was one of the things that I was very ashamed of. Never thought that I would talk about publicly. But again, I believe it's much more prevalent in society. And just the shame overall, just looking back at all the years that I spent as an alcoholic, as a drug addict, and using all these different distractions to not deal with the things that I've been through and to learn how to live with them. And, I look back at all the time I wasted, all the money I wasted, all the relationships that all that kind of stuff. And I just felt a lot of shame for that. But like I said, I've gotten to the point now where I've realized that vulnerability is power. It's not weakness. And for instance, I lived in Cape Town, South Africa for a while. Actually, no, maybe that's not a good example because I was doing okay then. Anyway, so just let's say a part of my life where I was heavily just into drugs or whatever, or alcohol. And, I had certain relationships that didn't go well. And those people know me as only that Jonathan. They don't know me as who I am today. And that was a hard thing to come to terms with. Those people only know me as that, and they haven't seen where I've come, where I've gotten to. But it's okay. That's okay. That happens, and that's the same thing. I only have a glimpse of, them being in my life for a certain period and knowing them as that person. And I think the people that stick with us for life and see the changes are the important people that should, and it's okay that's all they've seen. So there was a lot of shame around those things because of that.
Right. And you're not wrong about, when people snapshot you into the glimpse of time that they had an experience with you. And as humans, because of a need to belong and because of a need to be perceived in a certain light, we usually
Mhm.
take on that burden, right? In addition to, the shame that we're already burdening ourselves with. And that usually compounds the issue. So, what really was the catalyst for you to decide there's so much more to life than what I am currently experiencing, when it comes to whether it's eating disorder or addiction or whatever it was? What was the turning point for you?
You know what it was is I finally got to a point where I had been doing this for years and using distractions for years and years. And I finally got to a point where my final drug addiction was to some muscle relaxers. And in each pill, there was 500 milligrams of methocarbamol and 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. And I was taking 100 pills every single day. I was ingesting 50,000 milligrams of methocarbamol and 20,000 milligrams of ibuprofen. And I was doing that and started to see the effects of, I was losing weight. I was having fainting spells. Turns out I had a very large intestinal ulcer. And that was kind of the moment where I realized, okay, I mean, I've got nothing left to go on to as far as a distraction or a drug. I've been doing this for 15 years or so since my mom passed away, and it's not working. This plan that I've had is not working. It's time to do something drastic and either, go do some heroin or some cocaine or something. Or the other side was it's time for me to go to therapy. And it's time for me to look at and learn how to live with the stuff that I've been through and to not just survive, but to thrive and to understand that these things have happened. And like I said, I'd spent the better part of 15 years trying to avoid and distract myself from them. But I just got fed up and I said, this isn't the life that I was supposed to be living. And it was hard because then all of these compartmentalized boxes of trauma that I had put away so nicely and were just, zoned out with drugs, they all started coming in. I didn't have anything to numb myself, but it's the most important thing I've ever done. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done, but I always say it's the most important and hardest fight you're going to fight. But if just some regular dude like I can do it, anybody can do it. So it was that turning point where, I wouldn't even say it's a rock bottom because I've had dozens of rock bottoms along the way. I mean,
Right.
I can't even count, but just kind of getting fed up and just realizing that I'm just not living the life that I'm supposed to be living.
Well, so something that you mentioned, and you've mentioned it a few times so far, is grief, the loss of your mother,
Mhm.
right? So, at any point, do you think that compounded maybe an already existing problem, or that was the start of you trying to numb? Because with grief, people grieve differently, and it's funny we're talking about grief today. Oh my God, I don't want to cry. Okay, so people grieve differently, and there's usually a get over it kind of sentiment that goes with a person grieving their own way in their own time, right? So, would you say losing somebody important to you, like your mother, compounded maybe a problem that was already existing and it just made it feel good that you were able to kind of suppress all of those feelings and grief?
Yes, I think that's actually, you hit the nail on the head. And I've never had anybody really talk about it that way. I had alcoholic tendencies in college and stuff like that, where I would just, never want to stop drinking, but I could also
Mhm.
shut it down for, 6 weeks at a time if I wanted to. My mom
Right.
passed away very suddenly, very unexpectedly, the day before my 21st birthday, and it just rocked my world. And that's when I found that, my problems went away, 15, 20 beers at a time. So I thought, and you sober up and the problems are still there. And now you've created new problems
Mhm.
and you're absolutely right. I think it brought out what was already inside of me. I heard recently an old interview that Dick Van Dyke was doing, and he was talking about his alcoholism and stuff and how he's saying that a lot of people are the majority of addicts are predisposed to addiction. It's just a matter of what it is that brings it out for you and what it is that is that catalyst. I know for me, I have a genetic predisposition to addiction, and it's always been my personality to, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, a lot. And
Overkill.
it's one of my greatest assets because, if I do lacrosse, I become a professional lacrosse player. If I want to get in shape, and then then the other side is like, if I'm going to do drugs, I'm going to do, take 100 pills a day. So yeah, absolutely right. That's very, very poignant. And I appreciate you asking that because I've never been asked that way before.
I'm glad I was able to ask that question because there's a misconception that it just happens. It never just happens. I'm glad you brought in the genetic bit because if there's a history of addiction in a family, there is a high likelihood that it will continue if people are not like really paying attention to what is going on. And there's always a catalyst. It's like striking a match, right? A match does not just light itself. Some form of force has to ignite it, right? And people, I think it's societal in a sense where it's easy to blame the person suffering than to pinpoint what actually led the person to where the person is. The reason that grief kind of like it just hit me is that my dad died about almost 2 years now, and this outfit is actually something that we wore one of the funeral service of songs actually. And it comes in waves for me, and I would fight it because I'm very familiar with the 5 stages of grief and all this extra stuff. It's easy to teach that. It's easy to disseminate that information. However, when you're in the midst of it, you understand that you go through those stages several times a day, several times a month, several times a week, several times or several cycles in a given year. And understanding that I did not want to use a vice to kind of numb my feelings. The one thing that happened was that I had a Britney Spears moment, right? I said I have to feel like I'm letting something go. I'm taking weight off me. And I went to a barber and I told him just shave my whole head. And the guy got
literally.
so
I was like,
nervous.
I
did.
literally, wow, okay.
I shaved everything down to my scalp. There was nothing left.
Wow.
Right? So I shocked everybody around me, right? Because just the day prior, I was, all cute and proper and, all of these things. And it was the best thing I could have ever done for myself.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
That's incredible.
So that actually, yes, I experienced that grief as it came. However, I didn't feel like I was weighted down. It was freeing. So in saying this to everybody, like when you're experiencing grief or you're just going through something, do something that lifts a weight off you. I'm not saying shave your head. It's not for everybody. I did it. It worked for me. So thank you so much for talking about your grief and talking about, the things that kind of like catapulted it to a level that affected your health. Now let's talk about healing. Healing is not an easy journey. In order to heal from something, you have to sit in it and go through it. So how difficult was that process for you? And did you expect it to be that difficult?
It was extremely difficult. And no, I didn't know what it was. I always say, though, that I grew up on a farm, on a 500-acre cattle farm. And one of the things that growing up on a farm taught me is good work ethic. And, being young, being, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and it's a sunny day and, you just want to hang out and, your friends are at the cottage and that kind of stuff. But you have to go in, for 3 days, put in 15-hour days in the heat, bringing in hay. And it's like, you don't have a choice whether you want to do that. You just have to do it. Right. Or feeding the cows when it's minus 40 in the winter. And I hearkened back on that's who I am. And I was like, I'm going to roll up my sleeves and I'm going to do this work. And is it fun? No. Do I want to do it? No. Does it have to be done? Yes. Is it going to beat me? No. I mean, there's many, many times where I thought it was going to beat me. Right. And people ask me, like, what would you go back and tell your 21-year-old self? And I wouldn't say don't drink. I wouldn't say don't do drugs. I wouldn't say don't, do this, do that. I needed that life experience. The one thing I would say is that it's going to be okay. You're going to get through it, but it's going to be very, very hard. But that going to get through it part is something I needed to hear because I never thought I would make it through it. I never thought I'd make it. And there's so many times where I didn't think I'd make it through it. And it's still, every day we deal with that kind of stuff. But the real deep, dark, heavy lifting, real, like that stuff was like, yikes. Like this is just too much. But just kept going, just kept moving forward. And I also always say too, my little dog here, like she was a big help too, because she'd just do something silly one day and I'm just in a pit of despair and everything around me. And she would just snap me out of it just for a second. And I would try and focus on that positivity. And just more and more the positivity grew from, like a glimpse throughout the day. And it grew more and more. But yeah, it's a very hard, very long process. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew that something different had to happen, and I was ready to battle it. I was roll up my sleeves, same thing. Like you take the boy off the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the boy. And I was like, it's time to get to work.
I love it. I love it. So talking about farms and it brings me to environment. Do you think in your journey, in your healing journey, that the environment you found yourself played a part in you continuing on your journey to health? Because the reason I'm talking about environmental factors is that people have influences, right? So if you're hanging out with the same group of guys that, all you do to pass time is just guzzle, trade pills or whatever it is, that would have effect on somebody healing. Was that a factor for you on your journey?
It was, but I was a very insular addict. Drinking was kind of social, but as soon as everybody left, I was still drinking. Like in the morning when I was by myself, I was drinking. So, and when out with all of my drug addictions, I was by myself. So I created that environment. So yes, absolutely. I put myself in that environment and I came home and I'd wake up, I'd go train some clients for, personal training. I've been a personal trainer for 13 years. I would go to a modeling shoot, I'd go to the gym, everything would be great. And then I'd start coming home and know that I have to be in those four walls by myself. And that's when the anxiety would start to rise. And that's like, oh, I can't sit here. I have to get blasted on something because I can't just sit by myself. So yes, the environment absolutely did, but I was the one who created that environment. And I remember telling my dad, like I said, I was very insular. He just said, I know you're going through some stuff. And I was like, yeah, maybe I'm going to move, just to another part of Toronto, because I'm originally from Canada. And he said, listen, I don't know exactly what you're going through. You share what you feel comfortable sharing or not, and you're a pretty closed off person. But he said, just know that your problems are going to follow you. Don't expect that you're going to move someplace and like it's going to be a whole like magical whatever. And he was absolutely right. It was like, okay, I'm not going to move. I'm going to stay exactly where I am, and I'm going to do the work. And then when I decided to move to Texas, I'd done 2.5 years of therapy, and I'd gotten myself in a much better place. And I was moving towards opportunity and not running away from something. I saw an opportunity, and I went, and like I said, I was moving and going towards it and not running from anything, because that's a big thing people don't understand. And they think like, yes, changing your environment, changing the people that you're hanging around with, that kind of stuff is definitely helpful, is definitely important and stuff too. But remember that your problems are going to follow you, and with addiction and that kind of stuff. And like you said, grief, it's not a matter of ever getting over it. It's a matter of learning how to live with it. It's something that we will always deal with, and we have to learn how to live with it and the ebbs and flows of it. And some days are harder. I really appreciate what you shared with me, and it's very powerful with what you're wearing right now and stuff like that. It's minute by minute, it's day by day. You're right. It's hour by hour. It's all these things. So
Right.
yeah, you're absolutely right. But I really do appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And, I don't know why I was pulled to this outfit today. I haven't worn it since. I don't know why I
Wow.
pulled it out. I haven't worn it since last 2 Aprils ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I pulled it and I
That's
put
why
it
you had
on
that
today for
reaction when
some
we talked
reason.
about grief. That makes
Oh,
perfect sense.
that's
Wow.
why I said I wasn't going to cry. Okay, let's move on before the water war
Right.
starts.
Yeah.
It's healthy to cry, everybody. Let it out. I know I'm going to cry when
Definitely.
I get home. Whew, it's heavy right now. So when it comes to healing, going through something, recovery, with somebody that is so insular in nature, because again, not everybody's super extrovert, not everybody
Mhm.
talks about their feelings. For you, did you feel like you needed an external support, right? As you were going through that journey, because it can be very lonely, right? It can
Yeah.
be a journey that most people around you don't understand, what you're actually experiencing or going through. Did you find that you were able to navigate that healing journey alone or in your own way? Or did you find that having people in a similar situation helped?
I found that working with a psychiatrist really helped, or sorry, a
Okay.
psychologist, not a psychiatrist. She was
Okay.
a psychologist. And
Right.
to be able to have somebody, I always say, if you have, I know that not everybody has access to a mental health professional. And if you
Mm-hmm.
do, it's a great resource. If you don't, talk to somebody. But to have somebody who's a mental health professional that is non-biased, third party, and they can help you look at the things you've gone through in a different light. A lot of people around you, your friends and your family, you talk about things that you've gone through and they have their own bias because
Right.
they're a part of the story. And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah, well, F that person because, yeah, I remember when they did this, that, and the other. And so that was a big thing for me.
Right.
As far as talking about it with people around me, I wasn't doing that so much. I was just, trying to do the work myself, as well as, like I said, the tools that I was learning at therapy and going to that. And yeah, when I talk about my drug addictions and I talk about going through therapy and stuff like that, and I've started to go on podcasts, I got people reaching out and they're like, "Man, we thought you had it all figured out. Like you on the outside, like here comes Jonathan, the model.
Yes.
He's the fittest guy in the gym, whatever. Like all this stuff, the girls want like, and we thought you had it all figured out." And I was
Right.
like, and I felt like a fraud. I felt like a complete fraud because the person I was on the outside, I was broken on the inside,
Mm.
and it was from years of neglect of, I believe it's mind, body, and spirit. And I was focusing on my body and all that
Right.
kind of stuff, but my mind and my spirit, I was just like, I'll just focus on because I work for modeling and all that kind of stuff, and just here's something that I love to do. But it's the all three of them, and you have to absolutely. And I got to the point where I wanted to be a better person for myself, a more complete person for
Yeah.
myself, not just for the people that were around me. But I
Yeah.
felt like such a fraud. I mean, it's like,
That is heavy stuff because it's not like you were trying to convince anybody of what you were going through or what you were
no,
experiencing. However, people have a way of, naturally we compare as humans, right?
mm-hmm,
And we forget that they're functional, people function, like in the case of alcohol, right? We have functioning alcoholic, right?
mm-hmm,
We have functioning addicts, right?
mm-hmm,
People that can do whatever they do in the comfort of their home and they can get up the next morning and just merge into society, right?
right,
And unfortunately, sometimes that is minimized. At least you're still able to hold a job. At least you're still able to have a business. At least you're still able, the
right,
people that are completely, debilitated from their addiction. It doesn't make their case worse than mine if I'm functioning, right? Addiction is
mm-hmm,
is addiction. And if you have anybody, for anybody listening, please, if you have anybody in your life who trusts you enough or is comfortable with you enough, because it is a disease process that is riddled with shame, right?
yes,
If they trust you enough to come to you to ask for help, please do not belittle whatever it is that they're going through or whatever they have confessed to you that they're struggling with. Be in a place of support. Be in a place of helping them locate resources. Example, what Jonathan just mentioned, licensed professionals, right, who can support, because it can become lonely. And once a person is lonely and feel like they're fighting this disease by themselves, they relapse. It is very common,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So be there to support. Don't judge. Is difficult, but try. Be a decent human being, okay?
yes,
Try not to judge, please,
yes.
because it's literally the difference between sending them on a healthy journey or having them just relapse right back into how they came. Would you agree with that, Jonathan?
Oh, 1000%. And one thing that happens to me a lot too is when, people hear my story or I talk to them or tell them something, they're like, "Oh, I've been through some stuff, but not nearly like with what you've been through." And I'm like, "Don't do that. Like, do not do that. It's not a comparable thing. There's no thing. If it's that important and it was that hard for you, that's all that matters. And it's not a competition of, oh, well, you want to hear about trauma, this, and that. It's not that. It's absolutely just what is detrimental and crippling and just really hard for somebody. That's to be acknowledged. And you're right. It's something that
Right.
if somebody has the first of all, it's extremely hard to talk to somebody. So if somebody comes to you and talks to you and talks about what they're going through, just know that it's taken a long time and it's extremely hard for them to have gotten to that point. So don't take that lightly. But also, like you said, yes, don't belittle and don't just be like, well, just don't drink. I mean, it's just
Right.
easy. Like I just don't. I have to go to work the next day, so I just don't drink. Like what? Why is it so like? I don't get it. It's like try and understand and try and learn. And I haven't done the Alcoholics Anonymous programs or anything like that, but I know it's a big thing where the family learns how to cope with and understand the mind of an addict, because we have very specific minds and or even the person who's grieving or the person, anything like it's a very specific mindset or mental health, any of that kind of stuff. And it's understanding you can sympathize. You can't understand unless you've felt with and dealt with it yourself. But you can start to learn and educate yourself for those who are around you. And if you know somebody who's dealing with stuff, to try and best help them navigate and to be there, like you said, in the best way and not just belittle, be like, well, you're sad. It's sunny out. Go for a walk.
Right.
Duh. Like,
Right.
how hard is that?
That's
It's like,
simple.
dude, if it was that easy, do you think I'd thanks, like Copernicus, like great, like you should write a book or like fortune cookies or something. Like, come on, like thanks to tips. But
Right.
you're right. Don't belittle, don't compare either. It's a very natural thing to judge as human beings. It's a natural, we all do that. And the comparison thing, and don't belittle what you've been through. Don't belittle what other people's been through, and don't compare yourself to other people. Like, I'm having a bad day, but Jonathan's been through this, this, and this, and this, so I've got nothing. I mean, yes, be grateful for what you have and see that there are people who are in other situations that, it should remind you to be grateful and to be thankful. But also don't belittle yourself, and don't shrug that off, and don't do that to other people, which I think it's a wonderful thing that you just said.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And also, substance, because I don't just want to say drug, because alcohol does the same thing. Substance abuse triggers the best hormone we have in our bodies, dopamine, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to feel happy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The same way you get excited over tacos is the same way that drug is stimulating that aspect of that person's brain. If they can turn it off, they would be able to easily turn it off, right? So it may not appeal to you, but it appeals to this person. Alcohol appeals to people not in the same way. So it is not your place is like, oh, just stop drinking. Oh, it's just alcohol. I don't know. What do you even enjoy in that anyway? It may not just be enjoyment. It just makes them feel good. It puts you in a good space, right? A good but not healthy space. Another thing with Alcohol Anonymous and other groups of that nature, the one thing that some people do, either knowingly or unknowingly, is to kind of have a sympathy connotation to. Nobody wants people to feel sorry for them.
Yeah.
Like if father just makes a person feel like they're, oh my God, I feel sorry for you. Try to watch the verbiage too. Again, there's so many resources, and if I may, I'll include them in the show notes for you to utilize to educate yourself if you have a family member, a friend, an associate, anybody in your life who may be experiencing any substance addiction. So coming back to you, Mr. Jonathan. So what would you say to somebody who may be struggling right now with substance abuse or any kind of addiction and they want better, right? They know there is something different. They know there's something better than what is going on right now, whether it is widely known in the community or is somebody that is practicing in isolation like you have experience doing. What would you offer that person in terms of getting help?
I would say that, like, so as you said, that dopamine hit, that first sip of beer or that first hit of the joint or, taking those pills, whatever, and how it just triggers that. Yeah, it feels good. But you know what feels really great? I'm not a preachy non-drinker, and this is just for the addicts. Like, I think everybody should do as they please, have fun, whatever. If you can go out and have one glass of wine, great. I couldn't. I'd have bottles of wine. But you know what feels great is sobriety, and the highs feel higher and the lows feel lower. But it's the wonderful ebbs and flows and those feelings. Whereas before, I lived my life in this gray area where I spent so much time trying to alter my state of consciousness.
Right.
And I'd get, the highs would only be this high and the lows would be that low. And I'd be like, whatever. But it's a wonderful feeling to finally break free of that and to feel life and to feel life in a sober way. I had to learn how to do everything. I'd never been with a woman sober. I had never, gone out and hung out with my friends sober. I was never, there's so many things that I'd never done, and doing really well at work and all that kind of stuff. And like, it really showed me, and again, the lows feel low, but we all have our bad days, but the highs feel that much higher. And nobody can tell an addict or an alcoholic or whatever it is, it's time for you to get help.
Right.
Because we just say, yeah, it's time for you to go fly a kite. Like beat it. Like, it's only when we decide for ourselves.
That's right.
And just know that you're not living the life that you're supposed to be for whatever reasons. We all have, there are millions of reasons as to why people are doing drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, whatever kind of distraction, eating disorders, whatever it is. Just know that you're not living your life to your full potential, and you are worth the fight. You are so much more than what you're going through and what you are. You're not destined. I mean, there were so many times where I was like, this is it. I'm going to be an alcoholic the rest of my life.
Right.
This is it. I'm going to be a drug addict the rest of my life. Where I just, had resigned to the fact that, okay, this is what I'm going to be. I can't beat it. I can't do whatever. But just understand that there's so much more out there, and it's hard. Like I said, it's extremely hard, but it is so worth it. It's the most, it's the most important thing. And you're going to feel a lot of things. You're going to feel a lot of uncomfortable times and stuff like that. But life happens outside of our comfort zone. I truly believe. And yeah, that's what I would say. It's just really know that you're worth fighting for.
That's so good. You are worth it. Whoever's listening, you are worth it. You are loved. You have people rooting for you that you may not even know. So love yourself enough to want a different life. And whenever you're ready, you have support, because we can want it for you, right? We cannot want sobriety for you. We cannot want different for you. You have to come to a place of enough is enough. And when you come to that place, you have plenty of support in the world, and we're cheering you on. You got this, right?
Yep.
And so, Jonathan, for our listeners who may want to maybe follow your journey or listen to you or see what's going on with, the all-around nicest guy in the whole wide world.
I didn't tell her to say that one. That was all on her. That was her own. So I'll take it, but that was enforced. No, I appreciate that. And I love hearing from people. I love learning from people too. Right. When I do things like this, and I'm invited on wonderful programs like yours, I think it's, like I said, it's very wonderful what you're doing. And I appreciate you giving me the chance. And I've had a lot of opportunities where people have reached out and I've connected with and learned from a lot of people. So I'm sure you put all my information in the show notes, but Instagram, Facebook, yes, reach out by all means. I'm just a regular dude who's trying to get through it one day at a time like anybody else. And like I said, I love to connect. I love to hear people's stories. I love to learn from them. I think it's really important to extend a hand to one another as opposed to turning your back on and just turning your nose up. And
absolutely.
So connect with me, please. I am very happy to and really look forward to continuing conversations with people. And it's very powerful. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. This was great. This was really great. And please, we want you to let us know if this was useful to you. I know it is useful to maybe somebody wondering, right? Or somebody not having somebody in their lives who they're trying to help. We want to keep this conversation going because we barely scratched the surface, guys. We barely did talk about a lot of things. I would like for us to delve deeper into talking about these things, bringing more things to the forefront, answering those difficult questions, and asking those difficult questions as well. So get involved, listen, let us know your feedback. Jonathan is a regular guy. Yeah, he's a cool regular guy, but he's
Now she's just, we can stay out here all day. I mean, you want to just keep going. This is great for I'm going to be like, man, oh
we
man,
can,
I'm going to be floating the rest of the day.
I'm gassing you up. So,
Seriously. Pumping
it's
those tires. I love
possible.
it. Yeah, no, it's exactly. I
possible.
mean,
Yeah.
I do appreciate that, and like all jokes aside, I mean, yeah, we're just
Right.
regular people who are having
Yeah,
conversations and have been
absolutely.
through stuff, and we're all going through life. And just remember, you don't know what somebody has gone through or is going through, and I don't care if it's the person who delivers your DoorDash or if it's the person you work for or whomever. Everybody deserves your respect and
Absolutely.
right across the board. I think, and if they do something to lose that respect, then okay, you gave them a shot.
Right.
But like I said, it's about lending a hand and understanding that these things don't choose they don't pick by gender, race, like I said, tax bracket, any of that kind of stuff. These are things that we all deal with, and let's help each other. Let's
Absolutely.
really come together and support the community and support each other.
Like it. I love it, love it, love it. Be a decent human being, long and short. Just
Yes.
be decent, right? Somebody's going through something, as opposed to being judgmental. Ask questions. Ask questions politely, right? I think most people that I know would rather spend time to explain things to you rather than feel dismissed, right? So ask the
Yes.
right questions. Get in here. Ask us the questions if you don't want to ask your loved one, or you don't feel like, if you feel it's too sensitive to ask. Please engage. Let us know, and we're looking forward to hearing from all of you. And so also tell this nice guy over here we want him back, all right? So we can
Oh,
continue this
absolutely.
conversation.
I would
But
love
it
to.
was great
Yeah.
having you, Jonathan. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you taking the time. I'm grateful.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a wonderful conversation, and I learned a lot. And yeah, let's connect again. Let's do it. We have much more to
Absolutely.
talk about.
Yes, we do. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Take care of yourselves. Be decent. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Unshelling Medicine podcast. If you want to stay up to date with the latest episodes, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Altruistic Scribe on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. We share additional tips, updates, and health-related content that you won't want to miss. Have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes? Reach out to us at altruisticscribeco.com. We're always eager to hear from our listeners and tackle the health topics that matter most to you. Until next time, stay healthy and take care.